Welcome. I'm Betsy Patterson. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Ventura County, and I'm joined by a few of my colleagues in the league, and we're going to talk about the upcoming election. I'd like to introduce them right now. Pat Essick.
Hi.
Maddie Park. Teresa Camarillo.
Hello.
And Jane Spiller.
Hi.
A group of us met with Mark Lunn, who is the Ventura County Clerk Registrar, and his election office staff to find out what to expect in this upcoming November election. Due to COVID-19, the California legislature has mandated that the election will be a vote-by-mail election statewide. So, Pat, can you tell us a little bit about what vote-by-mail is?
Sure. It's not new. Over 60% of the voters in the last election voted by mail. But for people who are not used to it, every single person who's a registered voter in California is scheduled to get their ballot in the mail. They'll begin sending them out on October 5th. What that means is what they will get in the mail is an envelope that looks like this. It's from our clerk recorder, Elections Division, and it says on the front, vote by mail official ballot. And inside will be your actual ballot that you can mark. And then when you're done marking your ballot and you're ready to send it in, then this is the envelope you're going to return your ballot in. And it's going to look just like this. It says on the front, official ballot return envelope. When you vote, you need to sign the back of the envelope. And it shows you there where the X is, where you sign your signature, and then below it you put the date that you signed it, you print your name, and below that you print your registration home address. If you're not turning in your ballot yourself, or you're not mailing it yourself, but you give it to somebody else to mail or return, they're supposed to put their name up at the top of the envelope, and then they're supposed to sign it, and below it they're supposed to say what their relationship is to you. They give you some suggestions. It says mail your ballot no later than Tuesday before the election, but we would like you to encourage you to mail your ballot as soon as you have completed it.
Well, Pat, I think that it's a great idea to vote by mail and we're able to vote in the comfort of our home, take some time to look at the issues. And I think I heard you say October 5th is when the ballots will go out. So You'll be looking for those shortly after.
Yes, in fact, if you haven't received it by the 15th of October, you can contact the County Office of Elections and ask them when it will arrive or why you haven't received it.
Okay, so are there any other options other than putting the ballot in the mail? Maddie, could you address that?
Turning it in by mail is the easiest because it means any mailbox anywhere is essentially a drop box for your ballot. You can mail it in through the U.S. Postal Service, but we will also have in our county drop boxes. If you have any concerns about the Postal Service, you can go directly to one of these drop boxes. Yeah, so here's one of the permanent drop boxes. There's currently 13 permanent drop boxes. They're mostly at government type centers, and you can put your ballot in one of these drop boxes, and during the election cycle, after the ballots are mailed, these will be emptied every day by the election office. And so these will go directly to the election office. There's also temporary drop boxes that are going to be added during this period. And these temporary ones will be located inside, wherever they decide are good locations. And we're going to end up with a total of 31 drop boxes throughout Ventura County where you can put your ballot. And then in addition to being able to mail or put your ballot in a drop box, there's also going to be voter centers, which is a big change this year because in the past we've always had polling site and you're assigned to a particular polling site. But this year we're going to have voter centers. There's going to be 47 of them throughout the county, and they'll be located based on population and accessibility. Any registered voter within Ventura County can go to one of those voter centers and actually vote in person. Or you can take your ballot there. and drop it off there from 10 in the morning till 6 in the evening. That'll be Saturday through Monday before the election. And then on actual election day, the voter centers will be open from 7 till 8.
I've heard that you can track your ballot. Is that right?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. The Secretary of State has a link for Where's My Ballot. When you put your ballot in the mail or into a drop box, you can find out what the status is of your ballot, whether it's been received. And in fact, you can even find out, has your ballot been mailed to you?
That should go a long ways towards some people worrying about voter fraud. Is that a concern in this election? Do we have to worry about that?
Voter fraud is something that we've been hearing a lot about in the news and all, but in fact, there have been multiple studies with large volumes of ballots that have shown that really there is not much in the way of voter fraud. Probably the largest study that was done was between 2000 and 2014, and they looked at over 1 billion ballots, and out of 1 billion ballots, they found 31 ballots that could represent voter impersonation, which is basically what voter fraud is. It's somebody trying to vote for somebody that they're not. Voter impersonation is difficult to do, not very efficient, and really would not affect the election. Okay, so does anybody have any questions?
When will they start counting?
Well, actually, the ballots, as they come in, they will be processed, which means they'll be looked at to validate the signatures and that the voter is registered. But they'll be staged to be counted at 8 o'clock on election day. So no actual counting of the ballots will happen until the end of voting on election day. And then, after election day, there's still 17 days that they can accept ballots that were put in the mail by election day. So there will still be ballots trickling in, and they will be counted as they come in. And the election will actually be finally certified on the 5th of December. So the very, very, very final count won't be until December 5th. We can't expect to have the final tallies in until many days later.
Great. Any other points anybody would like to make?
Well, I would like to mention that I know there are many folks who really have always enjoyed going to the polling centers. And we are here today to give you some reasons why that is not going to be such the best idea this year. Although there will be 47 polling centers where you can go for assistance in voting if you are vision impaired or hearing impaired perhaps, or you can certainly take a spoiled ballot, something that you've made a mistake on at home, and you can take it into the voting center and turn it in and get a fresh ballot and complete your voting there. But actually this year, in response to the public health guidelines, as a result of our COVID-19 virus, we are encouraging everyone to take advantage of the vote by mail and get it either into the drop box or the mailbox, or if you will, take it to the voting center.
In the past, we had 200 polling places for each election. And this year we're down to only 47 vote centers. So there's a good reason to try to vote from the safe and healthy place of your home versus walking into a voting center if you can help it.
I'm going to share a screen that shows some websites that you can go to for information about voting. You can also find this on our website at lwvventuracounty.org. And with that, I'd like to say thank you, and please be a voter. And if you would like to get a mask that encourages your friends and family to vote, you can order those through our website also. Thank you very much.
Use your voice. Use your vote. That is our rallying cry today as we celebrate the 19th Amendment and 100 years of women's suffrage. I'm Gloria Miele. I'm the co-president of the Camarillo branch of the American Association of University Women. We are an advocacy organization whose mission is to advance gender equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy. So I'm here today to talk to you about how you can use your voice, certainly through your vote, but also through advocacy by putting actions into place that further your cause, whatever that may be. AAUW is in Camarillo is the only branch between Thousand Oaks and Santa Barbara, so we do serve most of Ventura County. Our organization in Camarillo was founded in 1965, so we've been around a long time, do a lot of great work and programs in the community. But the national organization has been around since 1881, started by a handful of college graduates who saw that they needed to come together to get employment and other opportunities that women were not afforded at the time. So the long history of advocacy, and we are delighted to be part of the Vision 2020 team who is putting on this Toast to Tenacity. So what exactly is advocacy? We'll go right to Merriam-Webster for that. It is the act or process of supporting a cause or proposal or advocating for something. And our Toast to Tenacity is advocating for voting, for voting rights, and for people to exercise their right to vote. Very important. And it's also important to figure out what is important to you. What do you want to advocate for? And why do we advocate? Well, we know that advocacy makes a difference. In a recent study, 2017, by the Congressional Management Foundation, they found that legislators listen to their constituents. They pay attention to those phone calls, to those letters that they get, to those meetings that they have, to the outreach when people show up at town hall meetings or virtual town hall meetings that we're all doing now. And legislators and their teams say 70, 80% that those kinds of interactions impact their votes, especially when the messaging is very personal, that this is how a certain law or policy will impact people in our community. So advocacy works, and we've got some data to show it. So for AAUW, we have a number of priorities, and advancing equity for women and girls, and we do that through removing bias from education. That's gender bias, racial bias. We are an intersectional organization, so we want to make sure that education is presented in the least biased way possible. We also fight for fair pay and economic equity. We've been involved in the Lilly Ledbetter Act. We've created a curriculum. We have a number of different curricula on pay equity, including a free online curriculum for that. So very focused on fair pay because, as you may know, women make about 80 cents per dollar to men, and that is white women. When we talk about women of color, those numbers go down substantially. So we are really working very hard on pay equity, one of our main priorities. And then advancing women in leadership positions, including supporting women candidates. So here are a couple of ways that AAUW is involved. We have been involved in supporting the Equal Rights Amendment, and when the 38th state voted to move the ERA to a constitutional amendment, the House came up with a resolution for that, and the woman in the top row on the right, the blonde with the glasses, that's actually the AAUW National President and CEO, Kim Churches. So we are involved at a very grassroots and meaningful level. So it's great to be out there. Also, as part of pay equity and education equity, we are very focused on promoting women in STEM education, science, technology, engineering, math. And we completely agree with Bill Nye, who says half the humans are girls and women. So we want at least, I'm going to say at least half the engineers and scientists to also be girls and women. So one way to be an advocate is to be visible. It's been a blast to hang out with the Vision 2020 team, marching in parades, tabling at events, and now doing our advocacy in little boxes like this via Zoom. But it's always, there are always ways to do this, and it's important to be visible and let your voice be heard. Also for advocacy, as the data show, that it's your message gets across when you communicate with your legislators. If you're able to meet your elected officials, that goes a long way. And also supporting women candidates in elections. And now maybe you are not an out and about kind of person. You're enjoying hanging out at home for COVID-19. And maybe you're more of an introvert. Well, there's plenty of ways that introverted activists can get involved. And there are a few of them right here. And of course, the bottom line being vote. One way to get out the vote is to do postcards. There are a number of nonpartisan organizations that are promoting people getting out the vote. And AAUW also has an amazing cache of resources in their advocacy toolkit. And these are strategies and documents that can guide you if you want to start a petition, contact your legislator, write a letter to the editor, hold a media event, many different tools that are helpful if you want to really up your advocacy game. And one way that is so simple and such a great tool that AAUW provides is called the 2-Minute Activist. And this is you enter your name, your email, and your zip code. And when there are important votes coming up, you'll get an email and click through to an online portal that will populate a letter and tell you about the issue, and you can communicate very easily with the right elected officials at the right time. So highly encourage folks to check this out. And certainly there are lots of other wonderful organizations doing amazing work. The League of Women Voters, the National Organization of Women, some of our business organizations who are involved here. So there are many, many ways to get involved and to be an activist. So how are you going to put your advocacy into action? What's important to you? Think about 1 or 2 small steps, or maybe big steps, that you could take to advocate for what you believe in, for your priorities. I'll give you a second. If you write it down, you're even more likely to do it. And with that, I just want to thank the Vision 2020 committee. Very excited to toast to the tenacity of women and supportive men who made the 19th Amendment a reality. As we celebrate 100 years of women's suffrage, I want to thank you for your advocacy. And imagine if here at the 100th anniversary, we had 100% participation of women in the voting process. So a girl can dream. Let's make the dream a reality. We start with ourselves. So use your voice, make sure you vote, and congratulations again on 100 years of women's suffrage.
Hello, my name is Shante Morgan-Durisseau. I'm a lecturer at CSU Channel Islands. Welcome to Toast to Tenacity. Today, I celebrate the centennial celebration of the adoption of the 19th Amendment. But most importantly, I will recognize those hidden figures, Black women who have advocated for women's voting rights and civil rights. On March 3rd, an estimated 50 Black women participated in the historic 1913 Women's Suffrage Parade. Until recently, it was hard to find their names in any history book, left out by white scholars and historians. However, modern historians have documented that since the mid-19th century, Black women not only marched in the historic parade, but fought for the right to vote while facing discrimination from white suffragists who did not want their movement associated with women of color. Still, rather than reject the movement, Black women continued to find ways to be involved in hope that women's electoral equality could benefit communities of color. History did not record the names of many of the Black suffragists, but here are a few of the most well-known. Ida B. Wells was known nationally and internationally as a crusader for justice. She traveled throughout the U.S. and foreign countries as an anti-lynching crusader and suffragist. During her career, she worked as a teacher, journalist, and public speaker. She founded the Alpha Suffrage Club of Chicago. At the 1913 march, Wells and other Black women were told they would be segregated from the main route and had to march at the end of the parade. Wells refused, waiting until the procession started and then joining the block of women that represented Illinois. Anna Julia Cooper was a prominent African-American scholar and a strong supporter of suffrage through her teaching, writings, and speeches. Sometimes called the mother of Black feminism, the published author is best known for her statement, "Only the Black woman can say when and where I enter in the quiet, undisputed dignity of my womanhood, without violence or special patronage. Then and there the whole Negro race enters with me." Mary Church Terrell attended Oberlin College as a young woman, where she became one of the first African American women to earn a college degree. She focused much of her efforts on securing the vote for women, touring the country to lecture on those issues. In 1896, she and fellow activists founded the National Association of Colored Women, and Terrell served as the association's first president. Terrell, an honorary member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and the founders of Delta refused to march in the back of the procession. Instead, they marched with the education section of the parade. A former slave, Sojourner Truth was an outspoken advocate for abolition, temperance, and civil and women's rights in the 19th century. In 1851, Truth began a lecture tour that included a women's rights conference in Akron, Ohio, where she delivered her famous "Ain't I a Woman" speech. In it, she challenged prevailing notions of racial and gender inferiority and inequality by reminding listeners of her combined strength and female status. For Black women, civil rights equals voting rights. So while white women celebrated the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920, Black women still had to face hurdles because of voter suppression tactics like poll taxes and literacy tests. It wasn't until the Civil Rights Movement and the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act that Black women gained greater access to the vote. Here in Ventura County, Black women in many of our organizations have been on the forefront of voting and civil rights. Here are a few notable crusaders.